I'd like to introduce the next speaker, Tina Horsted of the Horsted Institute, who's coming right here. Excellent.
Hi.
Please.
Tak. Thank you very much for inviting me to this first conference here in Sweden about medical cannabis. I'm really happy to stand here because I think it's very important that we work together, both as doctors, but also with our suppliers and our producers and our patients' organizations. I have, like probably many of you, an experience that led me to work with cannabis. I know that many of you who sit here has family or friends that have used cannabis for medical reason. And I was a consultant for many years in Rigshospitalet at the Multidisciplinary Pain Center, and I found out that a lot of my patients were self-medicating with cannabis with very good effect. So instead of like abandoning them, I went with them because up front they were feeling ashamed, they were illegal, they were insecure, and I think that for me it was something that started my curiosity. What can I learn from my patients, and how can I make them feel safe with a medication that works for them, instead of going to the illegal market? And as you heard Thomas told you about our free city, Christiania, where there's a lot of pusher that sells cannabis that you don't really can rely on. So being a pioneer and a first mover in 2016, it has been a very bumpy and long road, but we managed to have a very good collaboration with Glostrup Pharmacy, with politicians, with patient organization, and with colleagues and the Danish Medical Association. We managed to get this pilot program for, it was started for 4 years, and now we have extended it for more 4 years, and hopefully it will be a permanent solution like you have here in Sweden. This was this. So I would go through my presentation, and it is data from my pain clinic in Copenhagen. I have 2 pain clinics, one public where you can get referred from your family doctor, and a private clinic where you can come as a private patient, as I have like more than 6 months of waiting time. And I have a lot of Swedish patients and Norwegian patients, Iceland patients from Faroe Island, and they call themselves medical refugees because they're not able to have their medicine in their country. But now I can see there is a green light over Sweden, and hopefully also in Norway. So this is the group. Caroline Hesthaven, she's a researcher, and we have our professor from the northern region, Peter Leutscher, and they are processing all my data, and we have a lot of data. So here you will have the data on the first 3,200 patients, and we are processing the last 3,000 data, and we will publish that later on. We have submitted one article to Journal of Pain, and we just had it back with a lot of reviews. So we just finished that, and we will submit it again. Non-conflict of interest. So you know, in Denmark we are a small country, 5.8 million, but approximately 20% of the population suffer from chronic pain, and that is 1.3 million. And that's what it is in the world, it's 20%, so it's a lot. But not all of these patients need to go to a specialist in pain management. They can easily be handled in the family doctor's practice. But around 5 to 6% have severe pain and need specialist treatment. And that is a note for all these pop-up online cannabis pain clinics that are showing all around Europe and the world. It's like it's not for everybody, because these patients are very complicated. They have a huge large of comorbidity and have a lot of pain medication, and you have to really be certain of interaction with all these medications that they are using. But if we go back to the pilot program, there are 4 indications, and it's MS, and it's neuropathic pain despite any etiology, and it's nausea and vomiting with chemotherapy, and it's neuropathic central pain with spinal cord injury. We decided to have these 4 indications because that's what we could find evidence for when we did the research, and also what we listened and heard from our colleagues around the world. We hope that for the future that we will have much more indication like PTSD, like anxiety, insomnia, but many of our pain patients have also depression, PTSD, insomnia, and so on, Parkinson. So we treat also that condition, and we do the observation, and we have data on it. But it you know, when it is, we start in these small steps, and we have to have experience. And now I heard there was a doctor who had specific questions about the research that are going on. And in Denmark, we have 36 RCTs with cannabis-based medicine going on, and we have one doctor. He made a PhD in MS with cannabis oil, and he defended that thesis half a year ago. So we are working on it. The challenge is with the flowers that our Danish safety agency has huge demands to us. So we can't do RCT with flower products because we have to be able to describe every chemical compounds in the flower, and it's more than 450. So you can see it's not only THC and CBD, and that makes it in Denmark very complicated. And I don't know how you can handle it in Sweden, but we are very open to cooperate and find a way together. So you can have my details later. They are here on the slides. So let's stay in contact about that, because it's very, very important that we do the research, because all the resistance of cannabis treatment, they are yelling for evidence, evidence, evidence. So let's stick to that. So in Denmark, it's expensive to be a cannabis patient, and the government reimburse around these 1,500 euros a year. But if you are using like 30 grams a month, which is the one that are legal, which are the one that are possible, then you will spend like around 40 to 50,000 kroner a month. And our cannabis patients, they are not rich. They are poor. They come from the lowest, almost the lowest level of the society. If you have cancer and are dying, you will have 100% reimbursed from the government. And of course, if you have a private insurance, also possible. So we have a different kind of products. We have a very good collaboration with Glostrup Pharmacy that make cannabis oils on special prescription in special concentration, both as oils and capsules and tablets. And it's both isolate, but it's also full spectrum oil. And that's a possibility that's unique, and we have in Denmark. The medical cannabis, Thomas told us a little about Stenocare's product. And if you can see here, the THC drops, the CBD drops, and 1-to-1 drops, they were taking out of the market in 2019. And now they just introduced the THC oil, 30 milligram per milliliter, and I think they are working on CBD for the next one. Yeah. And a lot of patients, they ask for CBD because then there's not this driver's license issue. which is important for them if they have spinal cord injuries and MS and are not able to use public transportation. And then we have dancan, cangrass with the flowers. So we have different kind of flowers. The Bidica, the 40% THC, Bediol, half almost THC, CBD, and Bidrukan, strong one, 22%. And Little Green Farmer from Australia just came with a THC 16%. It cost around between 500 and 700 Danish kroner for 5 grams. So we have in the pain clinic for the last 6 years, I have seen approximately 42,000 patients, and that's a lot. And we have more than 60,000 patients we have treated with cannabis. And here you have the data. So I just took the most common side effects that we have reported, because that's what's the only demand from the Danish Medical Association, and the only one that we had money to do was to collect the side effects. They didn't care about the effect at all, but the side effect was important. And we found out that there has been only few serious adverse events. Most commonly, it was dry mouth, dizziness and drowsiness and sedation. And it was, by time patient, they developed tolerance to these symptoms. So in that way, I will say it's very easy to work as a doctor with cannabis, and nobody ever died of a cannabis overdose. So here you can see we divided up the group of men and female, and you can see that female are the majority of the pain patient. She's typically between 55 and 75 years old. She suffers from, besides chronic pain, anxiety, she's overweighted, very poor life quality, and often isolated. There are many of also cannabis resistant that thinks that the cannabis patient is a young man that wants to get cannabis on a prescription from the doctor, and you can see they are hardly not very well represented here. So we treated 370 patients with Bediol. That was a flower with almost half to half. And it's very popular among the patient because for them it's very easy to administrate on the vaporizer, or they make the pot chai. They make the tea and drink small cups of tea during the day. We also have some that make cookie, but it can be a little more complicated dose. But for the ones that think it's complicated to have the tea with them, they bake a cake, and they know that in one cookie they have half a gram or 1 gram, so they divide it up. And again, from that perspective, it's not like having 1 gram of paracetamol. You have a cookie of cannabis, and that is fine, because we do what it works, what's worked for the patient. And we as a doctor has to get used to work in a different way than we used to do. It's not 10 milligrams of opiate. We have to know that the patient have 1 tablet and it contains 10 milligrams of oxy or morphine, because it's dangerous otherwise. And Bidrukan, that was a strong THC, almost 200 patients, and you can see it's mostly the men from 40 to 60 that uses the strong THC. We have in the clinic small courses where we learn them to vaporize, and we have developed guidelines. So if some of you want the guideline, you can also call me or write me. So it's like in the mighty vaporizers that are medical prescribed, there is 0.2 gram in the capsule, and it's 10 inhalations. So they know they can have maximum 5 grams a day, and there's 10 inhalation, and not all of our patients use that much. Because when they come, example, from the illegal market, they sometimes use 3 grams, but that's also because they smoke it, and when you smoke it, it goes up in smoke 80%. But when you vape it, it's like it's steam, kind of steam, and then you have almost 80% of all the cannabinoids in the flower. So they can reduce, like using 0.5 to 1 gram a day, which are the maximum they can have in Denmark. Bedica is an indica plant, and it was the one with the 40% of THC. And we use that mainly for patient that also describes insomnia, because it's a heavy plant, and the patients are very satisfied with that. So we often combine it. We use the Bedrocan or the Bediol in the daytime, and the Bedica in the nighttime. We do that a lot. We combine everything. We use the oil, the capsules, the flowers, whatever works for the patient. Also, when they travel around in the world, it's difficult with many are afraid of traveling with the flowers, even though that it is allowed, so they can have the capsules. And here is all our products from Glostrup Pharmacy. And it's oil, primarily oil products that we use, also because it's so easy to dose. So, and they have a dispenser, so it comes like in drops. It looks like a nose spray, and it's easy for them, even though if they have MS or a spinal cord injured, they can handle that dispenser. And that can be a little difficult with the spray, with the Sativex spray, because they don't have the strength in order to push down the spray. So we start normally using the cannabidiol, and if it's not functioning after 1 to 2 months, then we slowly add the dronabinol, which is the THC. And this one is it's dronabinol cannabidiol. It's 10 plus 25 milligram per milliliter, and this one is 100 milligram per milliliter. And this one you can have both as an isolate, totally of THC free, but also with a full spectrum oil. And this was a Stenocare's product with the THC drops. You can see we had a lot of patients in that. They really cried when all these products were out of the market. So I stood on Jamaica July 2019 with a phone. We are out of the market and had 1,500 patients. That was really challenging. But we managed to Glostrup Pharmacy went in and did all these products for us. And then the CBD drops, very popular too, and it's also full spectrum product with a nice terpene profile. Somebody asked about the terpene because it has high concentration of beta-carotene that are anti-inflammatory. So we used it a lot for fibromyalgia and arthrosis. And that was the 1-to-1 drops, also very popular. That was, I think, the most popular product we had. More than 500 patients. So we did the conclusion. It was safe. Side effects moderate, tolerance. 1 out of 3 had more than 30% pain reduction, which is quite good for a very stigmatized patient group. And 1 out of 2 reported more better sleep quality, and 1 out of 2 reported improvement in life quality. And that is very important, that maybe the patient have difficulties in describing, is there really a pain relief? Many of them, they just spontaneously express, I don't want what happened in my body, but I feel very good, much better than before. And I sleep better, I'm in a better mood. I can do more, I can exercise more. And that is very important to focus on also, that you together with your patient define the goals that they are reaching out for. Dropout, 50 to 60%. We are now re-evaluating that data. And for the medical cannabis, it was a little less. But that was also because it was a little cheaper for the patient. And economic is a very important issue. And together with the driver's license, it is allowed to drive in Denmark if you have cannabis on prescription and if you don't go over 0.001 milligram of THC per kilo blood. And nobody knows, because you know cannabis is very lipophil and it goes into the fat tissue and you never know when it comes back to the blood. So that is hopeless. So we will really hope for our patients' sake that we can do as a Canadian, that they can drive 6 hours after inhalation and 8 hours after oral consumption. Yeah, and for the future, we just started to do. I will just go to this. We have developed an app, so the patient will be able to have an Apple Watch. And within the Apple Watch, it's born with a lot of data in front, like the sleep cycle, the steps, the ECG, the pulse, the skin texture. And the only thing that the patient has to do once or twice a day is to register symptoms. So they register the VAS. The VAS, here it is, the VAS scale, the nausea and vomiting, and the headache. And that is in order to support all their subjective data, which is very important also for them. They come in the consultation and they say, I hardly sleep. And I'm saying, oh, that's so sad, what can we do? Then I can see the watch, because it's live data, live recorded, so I can see, but you sleep. And also about, I cannot walk, I cannot move anyways, I can see you walk, you have 10,000 steps. So in that way, we can goal direct the consultation and encourage our patient even more. And we do that. And thanks to the DanCan for supporting us in this matter. We are very grateful for that. Education, big issue. We discuss it all the time. There is a tendency that everyone can do this. It's probably not that complicated, but you need a very good start. And there's a lot of online courses from different producers right now. You can go. But watch out for it and pick the course that have high quality and skilled doctors and educated doctors in this. There's no formal education in cannabis medicine, not yet, but we are organized in international association. There's a big one, I will recommend that, in Canada called PMC Network, and there's also a UK organization called UK MMSS. So you can also have their information if you contact me. Yeah, I've written that. And I was thinking about it was maybe a good idea to start a Scandinavian Cannabis Society and organize us in that also in research matters and everything, and also to do the sparring with another colleague. In Denmark, I only have like 2 colleagues there with me now, and I have trained them, and they have worked for me. It's Dr. Julie Molke and Dr. Bent Damgaard. They will come a little later on the program and give more hands-on with the patient. But it's very important that you can have your colleagues along with you. The politicians, very complicated in Denmark. Our social facet party, I was almost going to call them, they are very against cannabis, and especially our Minister of Health. But we hope that we, by time, can reach to understanding and we can make this for a permanent solution. For the thing for the patient is they cannot stand if they suddenly can't have their medicine. It's out of market or it's out of supply. It's taking out of market and so on. So we need stability. Yeah. There you have the details, so you can just write it down and let me hear if you have any further questions. So I'm open to questions. Yeah.
I was just wondering, there's a lot of research coming out, some conflicting, showing that those who are medicating with opiates or transition to cannabis lower their opiate use by a lot.
Yeah.
What is your experience with that? And
The same.
what is your experience with the adverse effects of opiates relative to medical cannabis?
The adverse effect of opioids are, it can be death. Finally, one American is dying every 15 minutes unintended because of an OxyContin overdose. We also have sudden deaths in Denmark with opioids. We are number 5 in the world to prescribe opioids. And in my clinic, I kind of negotiate with my patient. I say, if you want cannabis, you have to go down in dose with the opioids. And they're very motivated and they're very scared. Luckily, you can see that all these documentaries that have been going on, like Dope Sick and Crime of the Century with the Purdue family, has really scared them. And we can use that positively to reduce the dose and maybe totally to go out of opiates. And we use cannabis, especially CBD, to withdraw symptoms. So in that, we also have data on that when we have finished, to have an exact picture of how many really reduce or totally stop opioids. Also the other medication that we use, like gabapentin, that's an anti-epileptic, and also the antidepressive medicine. So, and many of the patients, they really want just to have cannabis medication and nothing else. They believe in it, and they have had so many side effects from the other medication, like enormously weight gain, dry mouth, dysfunctional sex life, and everything, and it disappears when you treat with cannabis. Yeah, thank you very much.
Just det,